So I've been using the S22 Ultra for nearly a month now, and I've never used a note or a phone with a pen before, but actually I've started using the S Pen a lot in my daily tasks. So this is definitely a super unique phone, and today I'll be giving you guys a full review on it, including the cameras, the screen, the battery life, and also the controversial game optimizing service issue. And although it's a super impressive phone overall, I did notice some unexpected flaws in my day-to-day use. Okay, so probably the most unique thing about this phone is that it's got a pen built inside of it. Now, I wasn't really sure about it at first because the S Pen is quite small and it's also very flat, but I would say it feels very comfortable to hold and I can write as well with it as I do with a normal pen and paper. The S Pen actually has near perfect tracking in the default Samsung Notes app. However, in third-party note-taking apps, like OneNote for example, I've noticed that the tracking isn't nearly as good, but overall, the S Pen is still super responsive, it feels great to write with it, and if you do things that benefit from hand-drawn diagrams or just other kinds of annotations, then I definitely think having a pen could be super helpful. Now, I didn't really do lots of writing with the S Pen, but there were still many other features that I found to be very useful. There's the screen off memo, which is really cool because it lets you write on the screen just by pulling out the S Pen. The screen doesn't need to be turned on, and this is probably one of my favorite S Pen features because the black background and also the neon colors just look really cool. And whenever I have something really important that I want to make sure that I remember, I will just write it down here, and then I can actually also pin this to my always on display, and this way, whenever I pick up my phone, I'll be reminded of it, which is really nice. Alright, so on other Samsung phones, you could draw on screenshots, photos, and videos. Now, when I use my S21 and also testing out the S22 Plus, I've never done it before, but on this phone, since I can actually write precisely with the S Pen, I've actually started to write little annotations and also circle things on my screenshots so that when I send it over to my friends, it makes more sense on its own, and I no longer have to explain what it is or where to look at. But beyond writing and drawing, you can actually also use the S Pen to do air actions. And with those, I can take photos or videos just by pressing down on the S Pen's button. So whenever I want to take stuff like group photos, I can very easily use the back main camera or even the ultra wide to get a better looking shot. And there are also some more fun features, like writing on the Samsung calendar and also coloring. And yes, the pen does make a sound, but you can turn it off. So yeah, I never really thought I would use a pen with my phone, but now that I have it, it's actually quite useful in many ways. Okay, so on paper, the S22 Ultra has one of the best screens out there, and it is fantastic in many ways. It's an LTPO panel with an adaptive 120Hz refresh rate. It's also a 2K plus screen with 500 pixel per inch, which is really high. It also has a wider than usual color gamut, so the colors really pop on this phone, and everything looks super sharp as well. Watching videos is very nice on this phone, but even just scrolling around, like on Instagram or Reddit, the wider color gamut does make all of the colors seem a bit more saturated, and I think this is noticeable even against the iPhone 13 Pro, which already has a pretty good color gamut. Also, the S22 Ultra screen can go very bright to a peak of 1750 nits, and this is much brighter than the iPhone and also the regular S22. Maximum brightness on this phone is probably way overkill for indoor use, but for outdoor use and also for watching HDR videos, this extra brightness is really nice. So this screen, and also combined with the nice sounding speakers, makes the S22 Ultra especially good for viewing content online and also watching videos. But for me, the one big downside of the screen is that it has a really steep curve on the edges. So especially when looking at bright content, the curved part of the screen looks dimmer than the rest. And I think this is pretty distracting. Imagine if the top and bottom of this video were darkened. That's kind of what everything looks like on this phone. And also the curve catches light, so at some angles, there are just these two streaks of light that cut through the screen. Overall, these issues aren't too bad, but since the curved screen really doesn't add any functionality or look particularly good, I would much rather have just a regular flat screen on the S22 Ultra. Okay, and speaking of the design, so this phone is really well put together. It's covered in Gorilla Glass Victus Plus. The back is matte, and the texture does feel pretty good, but it does catch a bit of fingerprints. There's some on there right now. I'm not sure if you can see it on camera or not. It has the usual IP68 water and dust resistance, but I do have some issues with the build. The corners are very sharp, so when combined with the pretty hefty weight of this phone, holding this with one hand does get uncomfortable pretty quickly because the corners do dig into my palm. But the sides of this phone are actually rounded, so if you're gonna mostly use the phone with two hands and just hold it by the side like this, then it's pretty comfortable. And I don't think the sharp corners are a huge issue because they can be easily covered up with a phone case. And now I want to tell you guys about Casetify, the sponsor of this portion of the video. So all of Casetify's cases come in 100% compostable packaging. Their impact cases are made with 65% recycled and plant-based materials, and their Crush impact cases are made from upcycled phone cases. Casetify is actually able to reduce their carbon footprint by 20%. Also, Casetify cases have Defensify antimicrobial coating, which eliminates 99% of bacteria by preventing the growth of microbes and preventing bacteria from sticking to the surface in the first place. Now, Casetify has many cool designs for their phone cases, so you can pick your favorite color or print for your case to match with your phone and style. You can even customize a case with your own monogram or name, and their cases also support wireless charging. Now, Casetify's Impact and Crush Impact cases are super sleek and slim, even slimmer than a 10-cent coin, but they are also engineered with a 2-layer construction of upgraded Chi-Tech 2.0 material, so they are 6.6 feet drop test approved. Let's test this out. So now I'm going to purposely drop my new S22 Ultra. As you can see, my phone and the case are both completely fine. Casetify's cases can definitely be a great gift for your friends, family, or even for yourself. You can go to casetify.com/createdbyella today to get 15% off. So the S22 Ultra has a 108 megapixel main camera, a 3x and a second 10x optical zoom telephoto, and also a 12 megapixel ultra wide camera. So I took lots of photos and videos with this phone, and when taking photos with the main camera, you can actually choose between 108 megapixel mode or just the regular 12 megapixel mode. And the 108 mode does make a big difference. It gives a lot more detail than the default mode. The difference isn't super noticeable if we don't zoom in on the phone, but with the 108 mode, you can definitely crop in way more in post with the image still looking sharp. So there's more flexibility there. However, do note that the files are nearly 5 times larger. And the 108 megapixel photo is definitely the most detailed photo taken by a phone I've ever seen. Here's a side-by-side with a photo taken with the iPhone 13 Pro. You can just see more detail in the 108 image, especially when we punch in. But for me, the most interesting camera on this phone is the 10x optical zoom. It lets me see really far, way beyond what my eyes can see. And of course, this could definitely be useful for reading far away signs. And actually, the 10x telephoto quality looks pretty good. It doesn't have the same quality of the main camera, but it certainly looks a lot better than just cropping in on a regular 3x telephoto lens. Now, the photos from the 3x telephoto lens on this phone do look pretty good too on its own, but I think it's the weakest link in this camera system. Side by side with the iPhone's 3x telephoto camera, we can see that the text here just isn't as sharp. All right, and the ultra-wide photos on this phone are pretty decent as well. There's nothing too special going on here, and same with the front selfie camera. Although I did notice that compared to the iPhone, the Samsung does smooth out my skin more. Now, software-wise, the Samsung's camera app is packed with some pretty fun features. There's the Pro Photo mode, which lets you adjust things like the ISO, focus, and also the white balance precisely. There's also Single Take, where you take a video of something for up to 15 seconds, and then from that video, the phone will automatically make a bunch of photos and videos, like these with filters, and even this fake 24-hour time-lapse video. And I actually think it looks quite realistic. So yeah, overall, the S22 Ultra has a really good camera system. It outperforms other Androids and also the latest iPhone in many aspects, and it has some really fun features too. But against the iPhone, the only area where it's far behind is RAW photos. The RAW photo on the Samsung is just a single frame and not a smart composition of several frames like Apple Pro RAW. So the Samsung RAW photo is just a really noisy image with poor dynamic range, so not very useful. The S22 Ultra's video quality is very good too, with pretty insane stabilization. The video looks detailed, perhaps a bit over-sharpened, but it also has very good dynamic range. But the HDR capability is a bit of a letdown. It's not on by default, and you have to go into the camera settings and then advanced recording options, and then toggle on recording videos in HDR 10+. And the quality of HDR videos is inconsistent. Under certain conditions, there are lots of artifacts, and I also noticed that when recording a light bulb specifically, it seems to think that it's the sun, so it paints it this orange color. But when it comes to the performance of this phone, on paper, it's pretty decent, just like other Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 phones. However, Samsung actually has this game optimizing service that slows down all the common games and apps to reduce the heat and also to save battery. But this is at the cost of performance. Benchmarking apps like 3D Mark, the one that I've been using, actually aren't limited in the same way. So you may very well end up with much lower gaming performance than what the benchmark scores indicate. This obviously is far from ideal, but at least with the new software update, you can turn the game optimizing service off. It is a bit convoluted though. You have to go into the game booster settings and then labs and then toggle this thing on in order to turn off the GOS. And without the GOS, the phone does get really hot under heavy load. So hot that it's really not comfortable to hold it at all. But regardless of the GOS being on or off, the phone is still very much limited by heat after around just 5 minutes of heavy gaming. I'm not a big mobile gamer, so I haven't really encountered any issues with the speed, but if you play some more demanding games, then this could definitely be an issue. All right, and now let's talk about the battery life of this phone. So I tested the battery life over the course of a day, and I kept the refresh rate on adaptive, the screen brightness at about 75%. It was connected to Wi-Fi the entire time, and I did change the resolution to 2K+, which it actually doesn't default to. So the battery life of this thing is actually quite good. It went from 100% to about 5% in the span of 41 hours. 34 of those hours were screen off, but there was over 7 hours of screen on time. And of those, there were nearly 5 hours of playing YouTube videos and over 1 hour of running benchmarks. So even with this insanely heavy use, this phone can last a full day. Now, in my more typical use case, it lasts on average 2 days on a single charge. But again, I don't really use data or GPS that often. Also, the S22 Ultra supports 45-watt fast charging, which charges up the phone really fast when it's almost dead. But do note that it doesn't come with a brick, so you might have to buy a new brick to take full advantage of the 45-watt fast charging. So overall, this is surprisingly a very interesting phone for me. The S Pen is quite useful, and the 10 times telephoto is really cool too. But this is one of the most expensive phones on the market, so I do wish that the processor performance can be better, and also better RAW photos and the HDR videos to be artifact free. But yeah, let me know what you think of the S22 Ultra down below, and if you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos like this one, then be sure to subscribe to my channel down below. These are my other social media platforms, so you can follow me on those if you would like to. And yeah, that's all that I have to say for this video. I really hope to see you in another one of my videos. Bye!